In this episode, we will travel to the northern part of Scotland. Nowhere in the world you will find more castles. This time, we will focus on Ardfreg Castle with a thrilling horror family story. If we believe the legend, the clan MacLeod made a pact with the devil to build this castle. But the price was high, as we will see later in the show. But there is more. If we follow the steep, narrow roads through this rugged landscape, we will meet sooner or later the famous Scottish Highland cows with their beautiful long hairs, and these ladies enjoying their weekly bath. And so much beauty asks for a great portrait, and that is what we're gonna do. My name is Michael Schutte, and thank you for watching Painting the Highlands. I have a lot of students in my classes who want me to do a Scottish Highlander. So I made some preparations and let's do it. But first, let me lead you through some eerie villages and streets in Scotland. Yes, if you like creepy streets and castles full of history, you came to the right place. Later, we're going to show you more, and of course, there is a dramatic, devilish love story. But first, we will take a look at the famous Scottish Highlander. An Erie is the traditional breed of Western Scotland. This very friendly, fluffy, 800-kilo heavy guy has really long hair which protects him to any weather. And here comes the most difficult part, how to choose a model for our new painting. Let's take a look. No, he's too dirty. And dark one, well, I don't know, dark is very dark. Maybe this one, he's cute but his hair is too short. And oh, look at that, we found our model. Let's go for this little beauty.
Hello and welcome in my studio. Today we're gonna paint an Highlander cow. Or bull, we shall see. First of all, we have to make a sketch and we're gonna do this in English red. So, at work.
Yes, at work. Off camera, I made a thin sketch of our hairy friend. I have to do this because I have to sit straight before my easel, otherwise it just doesn't work. After that, we're gonna secure the drawing with a bit of English red mixed with titanium white. This mix will absorb the graphite of the pencil and avoid getting a greasy surface. The other benefit is that we will be going through all the corners of the composition and meet all possible difficult decisions to improve the painting and make a solution for mistakes. Yes, that was quite a mouthful for a start, but we will see that it helps. For this sketch, we can use a small round brush, and my hand is leaning on a palette stick to relax the muscles. Try to avoid leaning on a canvas, it will make it greasy and dirty. I might be a bit superstitious, but when I'm doing a portrait, I always start with the eyes, no matter what the subject is. The Dutch masters said that the eyes are the soul of the portrait. And indeed, it's true. I think this hairy John is pretty young and he has a friendly radiation. The eyes and the nose are always the most complicated subjects, but we can do this. And I wonder how this fellow looks at world or in the world, because 3/4 of his eyes are sidewards and 1/4 is looking forward. Complicated, but for sure he sees a lot more than humans. Overall, the eyes are brown or even more dark brown. They have wonderful long eyelashes who will make the most ladies super jealous. The overall fur is pretty dense and protects him in winter against the cold, and in summertime it is breathing and cooling, a wonderful invention of nature. And you know what? This so-called pre-sketch is an excellent exercise to get the technique of painting long hairs. The trick is, first we press the bristles into the canvas, and then at the end of the stroke or move we release the pressure. Something to practice. It's an interesting technique, and if you have trouble with it, you always can come by and I will show you how it all works during workshops. Very easy, and we always have a lot of fun. Like I said, never touch the canvas with your hands. And what is your teacher doing? He is touching the canvas with his hand. I will explain. This canvas had been laying for more maybe than 15 years in a cold shed. And it was totally lame. I mean, it was hanging flat when it came into my warm studio. The solution for this is spray the back of the cotton with some water and let it dry. And of course, being impatient, I didn't take the time for that, so yes, I had a floppy canvas. After the session, I sprayed it a bit and it got slowly better. In the good old days, you could tighten the canvas with little wedges by giving them a little hit with a hammer in the corners. Yes, I really loved that system, and spoiled as I was, I used the real Belgian linen, which is now not affordable anymore. So I had to work a bit with a flippy floppy canvas, and while I was painting I kept it straight by pushing at the sides. And like we say in Holland, art is born out of hard work, sweat and poverty. But it will get better, no worries. Now for the background we can use some grey tones, light, middle and dark, and I combine it with a little touch of light ochre tones. As Scotland is pretty grey in wintertime, I found it a good idea to start with greys. The mood is mysterious, old legends fly around, and above all, grey is a good start for your painting. Good for your color balance too. Once a famous Dutch master said, all colors come out of the grey. So, it will build up nicely. And I've been in Scotland and I loved it. I enjoyed the old villages, the castles, the rugged coast, and above all the legends of the Scots and the Picts. And we like the stories of Braveheart and other local heroes, and above all the ghosts who still haunt in almost every castle. And as promised, I will tell you later about the Aardveig Castle with an interesting family drama. Now let's move on with the background, and as the fur of Harry John has a light back color, we need a dark background. This is thinking ahead, very important. So going to the fur direction, we use a bit more dark gray. And like I mentioned before, here it is, we add more dark gray close to the fur. Then we go slowly lighter, and even a bit of the light ochre tone will suit nicely. We do a few more strokes, and now we're finally gonna do something else. But take my advice, always take enough time for a good, decent background. We let the English red and background dry for a few days, and then we start with the eyes. Yes. We use a combination of black and burnt sienna and start filling the iris. Down below, we give it a touch of orange in the iris like a backlight. Around the eye, we can use some ochre tones. It's very hard to say do this color or do that color. You have to go a bit on your feeling. The back of the eye is done with a very dark tone of the same colors. Like I said, black and burnt sienna. And before we forget it, we give the eye a touch of gray over the iris as a kind of reflection. And with a very light ochre tone, we will give him the eyelashes. Don't forget the famous eyelashes. We're going to do the other eye in the same way, same technique. We keep it dark with black and burnt sienna, starting with the iris. However, in this one there's a bit of an eye white visible. And we can do this with some dark grey. The back of the eye is dark and the front part is done with a middle ochre tone. We use a very small round brush and make small brush strokes. That is really important. Especially when we go around the eye like here, make small brush strokes. It's a tedious work, but take your time, no rush. If you ever want to do a portrait of an animal, whatever it is, a dog or horse, it doesn't matter, the eyes are the most important part. Like we said before, the eyes reflect the soul of the animal, whatever it is. Let's do more dark behind the eye, because the eyelashes will show better. And don't forget to give the eye a reflection. First, a little tip of orange down below the iris, and then on top of the iris we give it not a really light grey, but let's say a middle tone grey as the reflection. And then when you're totally happy with the result, here they are, the eyelashes. If we take a good look at these fabulous horns, we will notice that they are not smooth like an eggshell. In fact, they are pretty rough, have lots of indents, and often they are damaged because of fights or little accidents, who knows. With a dark grey we can start below and then move slowly up with a combination of ochre and grey and blend it softly in. At the top we're going to put some highlight, but we might do that better later when it's dry. The other horn gets the same technique. We start with dark grey, almost black, and go over it with a touch of light grey and a touch of the ochre tone, and then blend it in softly with a filbert brush. And this is how we create the illusion that we are looking at a round horn. At the top a bit more dark, maybe a few indents, and in the dark we can create a bit more backlight. Reddish ochre will do it. Before we go on, it's time for a little break. I promised you a ghost story, so here it is. Let's talk about the history of Ardfrey Castle in Scotland, once owned by the MacLeod clan. And it is said that MacLeod made a pact with the devil to build a castle on this particular place by the lake. So let's go back in time and see what was really going on.
Now look who is here, and what are you doing on my lands? I didn't know we had a carnival coming up.
Don't play games, Megalots. This is my property, and you are building a castle without my permission, right?
You bet I am, you little creep. And you got nothing to do with it. Now go away and run to your hell where you belong.
Okay, let's keep it nice and friendly. Just give me the hand of your daughter's best friend. You know, that beautiful little wet hair thing. And you have my permission to build a castle on my property. Otherwise, I'll burn your castle down to the clouds. And maybe deeper.
Hold it. Well, if that is everything, it can be erased. You know what? Consider it's done. You bloody.
Bloody what?
No, nothing, but now get off my property.
Oh, you mean my property, right? And be nice, otherwise I might change my mind.
Oh boy, well, let's get over with it. I cannot stand that little die.
So the marriage was all arranged. But, as you will understand, the daughter of MacLeod's friend didn't agree with this creepy marriage and jumped off the tower. And the devil was not amused, and dark clouds were hanging above the castle. He sent big balls of fire and the castle burned down. And yes, this is all what is left. And it is said that the ghost of the devil's bride is still spooking around in the castle ruins. Late in the evening, mostly midnight, you can hear eerie sounds of a crying lady. Yes, a real spooky story, let's go back to our painting. And no panic, there is nothing wrong with your television, it's all my fault. I'm still experimenting to get rid of that glitter on wet paint, so I used for a short moment a different lamp. It will turn back to normal in a few seconds, and there it is. The ear, I set it up very dark, and with a small brush we can paint some hairs. Using light ochre tones, some gray, a little bit of light, you have to improvise. It's very hard to say do this or that color. And very important, use short brush strokes. We will do the same with the other ear. Yes, we have two ears. We set it up dark with loose brush strokes and a filbert brush. Then upon that, with a smaller brush, maybe a round brush, we set up the hairs. And it's nice to do that wet in wet with a middle ochre tone, and over that we can put a few lighter hairs, see if it's not getting too muddy. And this is what we need, contrasts. We set up the horn, and in his shadow we paint light hairs, which will really come forward. It's always a good idea to blend it in a bit and then add a few more lighter hairs above that. But if you have the impression that it's getting too muddy, wait till it's dry and go over it with a new layer of hairs. Okay, enough hairs, and let's give the guy a good beetle wig. We start from the center with again a dark tone, and with the filbert brush we push the bristles to the left and right. And sometimes it's handy to dip the brush in a light color and in a dark color. And then with pretty loose strokes you can push the two colors over the head. It's pretty dense, and we have to know a little about the layers of this hair. The outside of the double coat of hair is pretty oily. You can feel that when you pet these guys, but be careful. In Holland, they let him walk free into the dunes, and they are so very friendly, but still impressive with those big horns. One day, I walked my doggy in the dunes, and two Highland cows were following us. They meant no harm, just being curious. But my little Maltese was not impressed of their size, and he was looking for a fight. So I took him up, and while the two Highlanders passed us, I pat one on the head, and yes, it feels very oily. And this will protect him from rain, snow, and so forth. This upper coat is covering the downy undercoat. And this combination makes them well suited for conditions in the highlands, which have high annual rainfall and strong winds, just like in Holland, so they must feel at home. And yes, they are big and impressive. And my little Maltese was begging me to let him go and attack the two 800-kilo weighing gentle giants. He said to me, "I can have them, boss, I can have them, no worries." But wisely, I hold him in my arms, and when the biggest bull gave him a friendly lick all over his snout, he suddenly cooled down and kept his big little mouth. And this is something typical of Maltese. The bigger the dog or animal, or in this case the Highlander, the more they want to attack him. I think it's fear or nerves, I don't know, with these small little guys. He once met a big Danish, 10 times his size, and he bit him right into his nose. And I thought, oh boy, he has had it. But the big Danish did the same as the friendly Highlander and gave my little Maltese a big lick all over his body. And my brave warrior rolled over by the force of the lick, and he was so surprised about so much friendly force that he aborted his deadly attack. In the meantime, I build up his head with dark and light tones. It takes some time, but it's a rewarding technique. Those hairs go everywhere, so let your fantasy go and keep it all light and dark and go along with the bending of the direction of the hairs, and that's really important. Then we have the nose, which is a wonderful instrument but so difficult to paint. We start with a dark background so the nose has a strong contrast, and then we build up the sides of his big nose and just go around for some outlines. I think it's a good idea that we first do the sides of the nose with a medium dark ochre tone combination with some burnt sienna. Then we do some outlines, and it contrasts very good with the dark background. The nose is coming forwards. Then, with a dark tone, we make the nose holes dark and paint a few more outlines. The front gets a lighter tone, and downwards we go a little bit darker. And for this, I use a small round brush. The top of the nose catching the light, and downwards it's getting a bit more into the shadow. Yes, the nose is quite a piece of art. It's a complicated instrument what cleans the air before it goes into the lungs. It warns the animal when danger comes around, or on the contrary, when food is eatable. And to paint, well, it's even more a piece of art. Very complicated. But we can do this step by step. The top gets some highlights and the surroundings are pretty hairy too. So with a small round brush, we add some hairs. There's never hair enough. This guy has a lot of hair. We're gonna let it dry for now and add more hairs around it in the back. And then let's give the nostrils a tip of highlight on the upper part, because the light is falling right upon it. And then we leave it drying for a time. And before we go on, it's time for a little break. Before we say goodbye, I would like to show you our Academy of Music and Art in Qualicum Beach. I teach there music and art, and my wife Els card making and scrapbooking. I would love to show you my paintings just to get some inspiration, and I understand that for a lot of you Qualicum Beach is not next door, but if you happen to be on Vancouver Island, just hop in for a chat and take a look around. And of course you are always welcome if you need some advice about materials, maybe color mixing, or whatever you want to know about art and music. My sweet wife Els is a magician with paper, and she shows a great selection of scrapbooking and paper art. And don't forget that we offer a wide range of courses in music, painting, scrapbooking and card making. Yes, there is a whole new world, a whole new creative world for you right at your fingertips. Our steady viewers might know by now that I love to support the North Island Wildlife Recovery Center in Arrington with my paintings. This place, founded by Sylvia and Robin Campbell, is a lovely retreat for wounded birds and other animals who need recovery and help. Also a lovely place for inspiration. So if you ever visit the island, take a look in the center and admire all the wonders of nature. Enjoy! This summer we will be there to say hello to all our feathered friends who I portraited the last few years, and say hello to all the new animals. Now most of the light is coming from the right, but there is a lot of backlight. So we start an orange ochre tone. You can achieve this by adding a touch of orange, what else, and more Elysian crimson to the ochre. And then we go in with a dark blue tone. And then we add a touch of orange, what else, and more Elysian crimson to the ochre. And then we go in with a dark blue tone. And then we add a touch of orange, what else, and more Elysian crimson to the ochre. And then we go in with a dark blue tone. And then we add a touch of orange, what else, and more Elysian crimson to the ochre. And then we go in with a dark blue tone. And then we add a touch of orange, what else, and more Elysian crimson to the ochre. And then we go in with a dark blue tone. And then we add a touch of orange, what else, and more Elysian crimson to the ochre. And then we go in with a dark blue tone. And then we add a touch of orange, what else, and more Elysian crimson to the ochre. And then we go in with a dark blue tone. And then we add a touch of orange, what else, and more Elysian crimson to the ochre. And then we go in with a dark blue tone. And then we add a touch of orange, what else, and more Elysian With a combo of black and burnt sienna, we can prepare the shadow side. And we add long brush strokes and we use a filbert brush. We have to improvise with these colors and brush strokes. This will be the first layer and we are just covering the blank spaces for now. But the brushstroke is the most important fact. No horizontal or vertical moves go along with the shape of the body, and that is most important. First we push hard and then we give it a soft afterblend. And this is how we build up a so-called double fur coat of these wonderful species. They can resist even an Arctic cold comparable with caribou and reindeer. Highland cattle are successfully established in countries where winters are substantially colder than Scotland, such as Norway and Canada. And they grow up fast. In 2 years they can be called teenagers and they can live up to 20 years depending where they live. These boys and girls have a pretty good structure of hierarchy of dominance, so there is hardly any aggression. Social standing depends on age and sex. The older ladies are being dominant to calves and younger ones, so there's a friendly nanny structure in the group helping raising the teenagers. The males dominate the females. Sorry ladies, but with this species the man wears the crown. No girl power this time. And there is something special. Studying Highland cattle over years, it was found that calves from the top ranking cow, let's say the queen, were given higher social status. And this shows the difference between the leaders and the commoners, like in ancient history of mankind. This strict hierarchy causes a friendly atmosphere with almost no fights or aggressive behavior. So we can find these friendly giants now all over the world where it's not too hot. But the Highland cattle is, of course, the traditional breed of Western Scotland. There were actually two distinct types. The first one is the Kylo, mainly in the Hebrides of the Western Islands. And these guys are small and overall black. And the cattle were so called because they were really good swimmers. They could swim across the narrow straits of Kyles separating the island from the mainland. So if the farmers needed to transport them from one island to another, that was easy. They just swim from one island to another, saving them lots of cost and trouble in transportation. And the other breed of the mainland is bigger and overall brown, like this little fellow. And sometimes reddish, more orange or blonde. There are variations. But our little Harry John here is a bit middle of the road, depending how the light falls. In the meantime, we keep going with the first layer. As the oil paint is pretty transparent, we have to push hard first and then blend it out softly, like I mentioned before. This beard is something special. It looks like somebody was creative and did a kind of broderie, making knots in his beard. It's a cool idea, but for us painters quite a challenge. No worries, we can manage this. First we're gonna give it a global layer. We make little crisscross strokes, not too big, and as we give it later the impression of little knots, we will see how that turns out. The surrounding of the beard will be dark, so he will pop out better. And down below we keep it all dark as it has hardly any light. I left the painting drying for a couple of days and then we are able to do the real work. So actually it's a kind of repeat. We start with the dark tones again and with short strokes and a lighter tone of ochre we will bring in the outstanding hairs. And here we can notice the incredible power of the oil paint. Because of the transparency of oil paint, the first layer will shine through the upper layer. And now the colors look way much more deeper and impressive. They give a great shine on the fur. For this painting we use earth tones, and normally this will usually give a dull effect, but thanks to the Alice Crimson it will shine again. Let me give you a good tip. If you have a dull looking painting, you can give it a wash with a very thin watery layer of Alice Crimson and a medium, but be careful, it's 90% medium and a tiny intermediate bit of Alice Crimson. And actually I'm gonna do this with this painting too, but we have to wait a few months until the painting is absolutely dry. I must say nowadays we have really good mediums with a lovely shine. And if you don't like the mediums, you can choose for walnut oil or just linseed oil. There's hardly any smell, but if you still don't like it, there's also an excellent water mixable oil paint, which works great and you just use water. Even acrylics has a certain smell as it is based on ammonia. So yeah, there will be always something to complain. So on the overall, there is a wide range of choices available. Students always ask me, what do I use for paint or brushes? Well, it's personal, but I always advise buy the best you can afford and go to a store where you get decent answers on all your questions. The brands of paint are overall pretty good. If you enjoy this fabulous hobby, you will get your own preferences in brands, brushes and canvases. Some paint brands are sturdy and some are more fluently with linseed oil, which make them so nice and easy to work with. If you use a palette knife a lot, then a sturdy paint might be better for you. But if you are a smooth painter, like me, then more fluently brands will work better because of all the oil. Another good tip is training your hand-eye coordination with drawing and sketching. And by the way, this summer I will give a few extra lessons in drawing and sketching and perspective. So you're always welcome to check it out. Back to our painting. It was all repeat so I could tell some stories in between, but now I gave the final highlights on the ears and horns with a small round brush and a highlight tone. And with the pinky, we can always blend it in on a dry surface, which is really a very handy trick but you gotta keep in mind. We gave the beard and the side a few more highlights, and I think this portrait is done by now. We used a gold color background and warm tones for the Highlander, which gives a great mood to this painting. Enjoy!
Our Highlander is ready to jump in the meadow, having fun with all his friends. I hope you like the show. Check out the website for the latest news. Till the next time, and keep on painting!